you if you're joining us on the YouTube channel to see it all happen. And hello to you equally if you're getting the slightly more polished version Monday morning or thereafter. Yes, that is a pot plant behind me. We've done a little bit of a glow up in the studio. Hope you like our new direction. Who's in? Well, I can reveal that to my right, freshly back from the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, is Jay Harris.
Yeah, it was a sunny day and then things quickly went downhill.
Right. Not for Nottingham Forest, they didn't.
No, not
for Nottingham Forest. On the big screen from New York City is Miguel Echegaray.
Jimbo.
Luis Miguel of ESPN and that mutant zombie flick. What was it called, Luis?
Mutant Chronicles, Jimbo.
Mutant Chronicles.
Chronicles. Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Yeah. Some shuffling
Don't
horror
worry, you'll
stuff.
get your residual check very soon. Yes.
Excellent. And also here, Jay, of course, from The Athletic, and his colleague, Tim Spiers. Hey, Tim.
How's it going, James?
It's going well, Tim. It's going well. Going to talk about the Carabao Cup final very shortly. I've got to say, though, Jay, that game that you were at in North London felt almost as big, if not maybe even bigger, than events at Wembley.
It feels like that, yeah, especially because we're about to go into an international break. So for the next 3 weeks, because Tottenham don't play again until I think it's April the 12th, it feels like everybody's just going to be talking about what on earth is going on there.
Well, you're going to be telling us what on earth's going on very, very shortly. Well, we'll begin with the Carabao Cup. Tim, you've watched this. Luis, you did too. It was a big win for Man City, and how it happened is next. Bit of comms. Lovely job. What comms you got, Luce? It's guest producer Lucy today, by the way, YouTube listener. Oh, I forgot to mention some of the things. Right, yeah. Okay. What comms you got there, Luce? I can't hear you. All right, then. That sounds great. All right. Yes, the Nico O'Reilly final, they'll be calling it. Loads of you writing in on our YouTube comments section saying, where's Clarkey? Where's Amy Lawrence? And making various sympathetic comments about how Arsenal fans will be feeling. Tim, how will City fans be feeling, though, this evening?
They were supposed to be here, of course, Amy and Adrian, but me and Joe have been drafted in at the last minute. Don't know what's happened.
Wow.
It just felt like almost business as normal for City. That's just how they win trophies, you know. It was amazing how they sort of just upped that tempo for those 20 minutes at the start of the second half, you know, the game-winning period, and all of a sudden they looked like the City of old again. They were completely dominating the game. Arsenal barely got a sniff thereafter. I think it was a bit of a lesson and a bit of a reminder, you know, not to write City off as many people have been doing.
What do you think, Luis, Mikel Arteta is going to be thinking this evening about his decision to start Kepa in between the posts?
I mean, I think that personally he's going to be second guessing that decision, but I think, you know, in public he'll probably defend it. Obviously, it was a horrific mistake by Kepa Arrizabalaga, but it speaks, I think, largely to the point that Tim was talking about, that, you know, Man City, if you don't punish them when you're meant to punish them, at some point they're going to punish you back. I mean, I thought Bernardo Silva was magnificent. I thought it was probably Mateus Nunes' best game I've seen in a long time. Rodri, of course. But returning to Arsenal, they really rued their chances in the first half, Jimbo. I think at least, you know, it was kind of a sticky, almost boring game in the first 45 minutes, but it's the kind of game that Arsenal like, and I think that they should have taken more advantage. I'll actually say that this is kind of the game that Eberechi Eze really was born to play in, and of course him not playing was probably a big factor as well. But, you know, yes, Arrizabalaга's mistake was massive, but I think it just snowballed to the fact that Man City slowly but surely in the second half fully took over.
Arsenal didn't really have a chance, maybe until that Gabriel Jesus header at the end, since the 7th minute when City's backup keeper proved to be rather more effective than Arsenal's one.
Yeah, they've rarely seen triple save. I think there were only 7 shots in the entire first half, and 3 of them were within 5 seconds, all saved by James Trafford. Yeah, that was the big one for Havertz, who you know, we talk about poor team selections, and I think, you know, Kepa, I mean, again, I wouldn't have started him either. I wouldn't have started James Trafford either, to be honest. But Havertz didn't really have much of an impact on the game at all. But that was his big moment, his big chance to put Arsenal in front fairly early on. He just delays his shot slightly. He's in a great position in the box, and that just allows James Trafford to come out and smother him. And then 2 follow-up attempts from Saka, sort of straight at him. But yeah, it looks great. Triple save for James Trafford. And yeah, Arsenal thereafter, it was very strange. They sort of came out in the second half, maybe expecting the same game as the first half and the same sort of patterns of play, and maybe City to play at the same tempo. But, you know, we saw the opposite. City really ramped it up a couple of gears. Semenyo, Bernardo Silva, Doku really coming to the fore. Pep's team selection paying off with, you know, Haaland, Cherki, Doku, and Semenyo in the same team. That's pretty bold in a cup final. But they were able to go through those gears, and Arsenal just had nothing. They couldn't play it out. It wasn't sticking up top for Gyökeres at all. Kusanov was giving him the runaround. Set pieces didn't work. Nothing really worked. It was a huge off day for Arsenal.
Kepa had a Kepa final, and that played a big part of it. But if you only had that one big chance at the start and then nothing really until the final stretches of the game, and City were able to ramp up the pressure in a way that they hadn't been able to do in their other big games at all of late. Who were the other people then who were at fault, do you think, for Arsenal, Louise?
I mean, for everything that we talk about in terms of leadership, I don't think we saw enough of Declan Rice. Just in terms of, you know, trying to push on and making sure that the team endured on. I do have to go back to Gyökeres a little bit, because this is the massive question that we've always had of Arsenal under Mikel Arteta. Can he finally get something going, win the Premier League title, win titles, etc., and, you know, a number 9, somebody that can get you out of sticky situations when it doesn't work. I think he's also to speak for as well. I mean, Tim was talking about how Kusanov was giving him the runaround, and it's completely true. Like, you know, you have to make yourself counted, especially in a final. But I think overall, just collectively speaking, nobody really showed up. Again, echoing what Tim said, you know, they're so reliant on set pieces. They're so reliant on dead ball situations. That wasn't working out. And then, look, we can talk about day in and day out all about how many players have come in ever since the winter of last season for Manchester City in order to create this overhaul. But they are the right players to come in to create that overhaul. You can't say the same thing for Arsenal, who wanted to win the first piece of silver. Antoine Semenyo was really delivering. Jeremy Doku, of course, was doing the same thing on the other wing. And there weren't no answers from Arsenal from the other side. Even when Gabriel Martinelli came in, there was just nothing that was clicking at all. It was actually to the point where, you know, I thought that, you know, Man City, you can keep on scoring here, because it was just such an uncharacteristic sort of dominant performance from Arsenal. Because even when you're not playing well creatively, at least you're showing your stature. And that definitely didn't happen. And it definitely didn't happen in the second half.
City don't go trophyless for a second straight season. Yay. What is this going to mean, do you think, Jay, for going forward with the other titles and trophies that are up for grabs, with Arsenal and City both in contention for them?
I think from Arsenal's perspective, it is a psychological blow. I'm sure there'll be lots of Arsenal fans saying, don't care about losing the Carabao Cup final as long as Arsenal win the title. And that's fair enough. But they've still not won a trophy under Arteta since that first season with the FA Cup. And I think just to put down a marker against Man City in a cup final would have been quite significant for them to do that. I wasn't able to watch the game, I only caught snippets of it, but the sort of performance that everybody's describing, it's just more quite boring football. And the fact that they've just not been able to get over the line, I think is a real disappointment. And obviously Tim's touched upon the backup goalkeeper situation, but I still also think, you know, David Moyes is a fantastic goalkeeper. There are going to be many, many big high pressure games towards the end of the season. This is also a high-pressure game. Just put him in. Keep that consistency in. So I think it's strange all round. For Man City, especially after what's happened in the last couple of weeks against Real Madrid, that will just give them a little bit of a psychological edge, because they'll know we are in Arsenal's heads a little bit now. We've seen it doesn't take a lot for Arsenal fans to get on edge and to start thinking that everything's going to go wrong and the world's going to implode. And City fans will probably be playing on that over the next couple of weeks.
All right. it might be that they get into Arsenal fans' heads, not necessarily they get into the players, but beyond what they do to Arsenal's psychology, how much of a boost will this be for Man City's own morale and self-confidence, Tim?
Well, they've had, a very underwhelming season, very underwhelming sort of recent few weeks as well. I guess it sort of justifies the path that Pep is taking them down, for Arsenal to be the hardest team in the country to beat this year. And they've beaten them resoundingly in a final. And yeah, we sort of saw the best of the last two versions of City. In terms of they dominated possession, controlled the game really well, just like they sort of used to, but also had that ability to go through the gears and sort of with vertical passes and really stretch Arsenal out, one-on-ones, dribbles, Doku and Semenyo coming to the fore. So it's a real sort of mix of his last two teams, I thought. And it was interesting, okay, it's a cup final, and of course they're going to be delighted to win it, but Guardiola's celebrations were just really noticeable. I mean, it's nice to see for a start. He's not putting it on. He's like running down the touchline. He's running up the stairs to get the trophy. Like, it's great. Viva Carabao. It's like it's. I wouldn't want to read too much into it in terms of his future, but I think if City go two seasons in a row without winning a trophy, I don't see him leaving on that note. So it'll be interesting again psychologically to see how this affects sort of Pep and his future, whether one final trophy was kind of what he wanted to go out on.
Right. One final Carabao Cup.
That's it.
Legacy.
And he's fifth as well. He's the record winning manager now in the competition.
Well, there you go. His place in history is finally secured.
There you go.
Luis, what was your favourite moment of the final?
I think when Pep Guardiola got the yellow card after celebrating, just going all over the place with his turtleneck and his tweed trousers, which, by the way, I love as well. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to make a completely unnecessary remark. People of a certain age will remember a show called Mr. Ben. There was a fellow called Mr. Ben who would visit this clothing shop, and he'd come out in a different outfit. When he came out of the dressing room, he wouldn't come out into the shop. Whatever outfit he'd chosen, and it would be a different one every week, he would then be plunged into an adventure based around his sartorial selection. An astronaut, a Wild West figure, something like that. Pep appears to have discovered his very own, because last week, do you remember we had his kind of...
Big shirt.
Yeah, big shirt, down on his luck, kind of painter in an attic type vibe. And today, was he in a library? Yeah. I think he might have been collecting returned books in a library.
Hey, I will not hear any slander, Jimbo. I will not hear any slander over the fashionista style of Pep Guardiola.
Okay.
That was a beautiful Catalan lumberjack jacket shirt that he had last night, and today was magnificent. But I get your point, and I do remember Mr. Ben. So yeah, it is a good point that you make.
You remember Mr. Ben?
I mean, I don't want to show my age and stuff, but back in university, I did study a few shows, and that was one of them.
Really, Mr. Ben? Wow, not Mr. Bean, right? That's a different show.
No.
Right.
Yes,
Although,
Mr. Ben. Yes.
Yeah. Which manager resembled Mr. Bean more? That would be another topic of debate.
The answer's Bruno Lage, by the way. I don't know if...
Is this right? It's Bruno Lage.
Is that Mr. Ben?
That's Mr. Ben.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, everybody. This will be exclusively YouTube content. None of this will be apparently in the podcast version. Luis, what was the point that you actually wanted to make, though?
No, I think I was basically piggybacking from what Tim said, which is I think the thing about Pep Guardiola, and he's done this throughout his career, Bayern Munich, of course, Barcelona, Manchester City, indeed, but any possibility, any tiny little opportunity that he can to psychologically have a boost over your counterpart, he will take it. And I think it was a very deliberate move to get that yellow and celebrate like crazy over that goal, not because he was just happy, and obviously yes, it's a League Cup, a one-up on the League Cup victory, but it's because he psychologically wants to tell Manchester City and his fan base that, look, they may be top of the table right now, and it's going to be difficult to try and overtake them, but today is Manchester City's day, and we need to make sure that we remind them of that. And I think it speaks to the volume of what he wants to continue to do. I mean, he is the ultimate competitor, and he's going to be regarded as one of the greatest managers in the history of the game. And part of it is because of how psychologically he plays this game. It's these tiny little nuances that he does in matches that he tries to, make sure he overtakes over the other manager. And in this case, being Mikel Arteta, of course, a former student of his. So, it's very deliberate, all those little things that he does, for sure.
All right. Well, sometimes he overdoes a little little bit, those little things in the big games. But today it all came right. Just some comments from people watching on our live stream. Chinchilla says, who's watering the new studio plant? Nick Woolgar says, Adrian's tears. Tom Jowett says, that's not funny. Come on. Tom Jowett says, was Eze the biggest miss for Arsenal? Which I think was that Luis, or was that yourself? Luis was making that point. His ability to pick up the ball and drive from deep might have got the Gunners up the pitch and into dangerous positions in the second half. Oh, Thomas Callan reveals that Carabao is the second most popular energy drink in Thailand. Don't know what the top one is. Jad Mantura says, would Mikel Arteta and Arsenal be allowed the same grace if we celebrated like Pep did? Scott Lynn says, United fan, I hate Turkey, but the keepy-ups with that ball had me howling. Shades of Nanny against Arsenal back in the day.
Well, that was another good Pep moment with when he just solemnly shook his head. I mean, it was the 65th minute, to be fair. It was very, very early for keepy-uppers.
I take a fanatic. He always seems to get his comments mentioned. I don't know how. It says, keeper aside, Arsenal still had a strong team. Kepa may be the scapegoat, but questions of Arteta? Question mark. I mean, we've asked one about why he put Kepa in, which brings us back to the keeper. But was there anything else? Late substitutions, perhaps?
I mean, I would have liked to have seen Max Diamond. I don't understand why, when you're chasing a goal and you need someone to produce something special, because it was that kind of game. I thought at half time, it was your classic. This is going to need something incredible or a mistake, because they were so well evenly matched and they were both defending so well. So you needed someone like Max Diamond, but we never saw him. I don't know why really. I thought that was the sort of ideal stage for him at this moment in time. We haven't really mentioned the match winner too much. He deserves his
you're right,
strong mention for it's just a remarkable thing and another really nice story in a League Cup final after Dan Burn was the sort of local hero last year. It's Nico O'Reilly this year, scored with his first 2 touches in the box and just ghosted in brilliantly both times. And he's proved almost invaluable for City this year with his versatility. They spent a lot of money on Ryan Aït-Nouri last summer as a sort of specialist left-back, but he hasn't adapted to Pep's sort of tactics and systems anywhere near as well as O'Reilly is. And Thomas Tuchel watching on, I think he's got to be a shoo-in for that England squad. And like I said, his adaptability anywhere down that left side and in central areas, he's just looks so composed and so mature for his age.
Brilliant. Got an update on that number one energy drink in Thailand, by the way.
I did try and Google that, but yeah.
Oh, really?
No.
It's not the one that you think it is.
Oh.
It's M150, according to Callum's 9511. Anyway, thanks for that. Francois Connor says there's a woman behind you. Oh, behind you. That's guest producer Lucy. Francois, that's guest producer Lucy. I thought it's one of those horrible things when you get a picture developed and there's a ghostly figure in a... Not that. At least I take it that you're talking about guest producer Lucy. Sorry, right. Great point about Nico O'Reilly. That's it from the Carabao Cup final. Quick straw poll. Jay says it will have an impact on the title race. Luis, impact on the title race, yes or no?
No.
No? Tim?
I think it galvanises City, but I still think Arsenal will win there.
All right, then. While all of that was going on over in Wembley, there was matchday 31 of the Premier League taking place and some big, big games in that as well. We'll get onto those next. Let's get some results from matchday 31 of this Premier League season. On Sunday, Forest, who hadn't won a game in 8 league encounters, went to their relegation rivals. But you know what? That sounds weird. I'll do it again. Matchday 31 of the season. Some big, big games. On Sunday, Forest, who hadn't won a league game in 8 attempts, went to their relegation rivals Spurs and beat them 3-0. West Ham, meanwhile, simultaneously losing 2-0 at Aston Villa, who were the only team in the top 7 in the Premier League to actually win this weekend, Villa, which is pretty huge news for them and for Luis and for their Champions League place ambitions. Anyway, also on Sunday, on Tyneside, Sunderland came from behind to beat Newcastle 2-1 at St James's Park. Newcastle are now winless in 11 meetings with their rivals in the league. And Sunderland also go above them in the table too. Woof. On Saturday, Villa, as mentioned on Saturday, mentioned the fact that none of the top 5 contenders won, unless you count Everton, who should now be in that conversation after they beat Chelsea 3-0 with perhaps their performance of the season. 2 goals and an assist for Beto. Chelsea stay 6th. Everton are now only 2 points behind them. Liverpool lost Saturday 2-1 at Brighton. Danny Welbeck scoring both goals. Liverpool with no wins in 3. Man United, thus, who themselves only drew 2-2 this weekend on Friday night away to Bournemouth, extend their cushion, thus, over some of the other contenders. And Bournemouth, by the way, following that draw with United, become only the 2nd team in Premier League history to have had both an 11-match unbeaten run and an 11-match winless run in the same season. Remarkable. 2 other games. Fulham came from a goal down to beat Burnley 3-1 on Saturday. And Leeds, Brentford finished 0-0. We're not starting with that game. We may well finish with it, but we are going to hear now about Jay's experiences in North London Sunday afternoon watching Tottenham against Nottingham Forest. Jay, first of all, the build-up. The build-up looked amazing.
Yeah, the build-up was amazing, and we should... It's been a difficult day for Spurs fans, but we should give them a lot of credit. They basically, a few of them got together and decided that regardless of what happened this season, whether Spurs stay in the division or get relegated, they were going to support the team as much as they could. So they basically organised to greet the team bus when it came into the stadium, really near the Bricklayers Arms pub and near the Son Heung-min mural. And I mean, there were people swinging from lampposts, there were people standing on top of the rooftops of bus stops, there were flares being let off, there were just thousands upon thousands of people. And it goes without saying, it was the best atmosphere at that stadium in a long time. It felt like it was a cup final. There were loads of flags and banners in the south stand. Everyone was just really, really pumped up. And I think the way Spurs started the game reflected that. There was a lot of energy, positivity, and it felt like everything was heading in the right direction. Igor Jesus scores just before half-time, and then they just completely crumbled after that.
Right. They started pumped up, and then they ended up just pumped. Basically 3-0 in that second half. We should, at this point, salute Forest getting their first league win under Pereira. What a week it's been for them. They came from a difficult position in the tie with Midtjylland, eventually put them out on penalties to tie up a first European quarter-final in 30 years. But this performance here, how impressed were you with Forest?
Yeah, I was really impressed. I think in the first half, like I mentioned, Spurs were definitely the better team. Ola Aina was having a really difficult time sort of getting hold of Matisse Tell. Matisse Tell was Tottenham's best player by a distance along with Archie Gray. But Forest sort of just kept at it. And I think in the second half, Morgan Gibbs-White became more involved. Elliot Anderson played well. I think he needs to give a shout out to Nico Williams because his delivery was excellent, especially for Taiwo Awoniyi's third goal. So there were just so many individual moments where Forest players just stood up and were counted, and some of Spurs players didn't stand up and they weren't counted. Right. And I think that's a big factor as to why things went wrong.
Okay, a lot of comments about downing tools and that kind of thing. This was the one game that they could not afford to lose, having not won a single game in the league since the turn of the year. So why were they so flat in the second half? Can you think? I'm
laughing at you saying, this is the one game they couldn't afford to lose, because I feel like I've said that so many times over the last couple of months. It's very apparent that this team really struggles to deal with setbacks, and it's been that way for some time now. So the other example is what happened against Crystal Palace, where Van der Ven gets sent off. They concede 3 goals in 7 minutes. They concede just before half-time here. Igor Tudor reacts by making 2... I don't know if they were necessary half-time substitutions, but quite drastic substitutions by taking off Mickey Van der Ven and Jed Spence, just changing the team, when actually what you had been doing had worked for 45 minutes. You just switched off at one corner. And then the players just didn't quite know how to react. And the second goal went in from Morgan Gibbs-White, the air was completely sucked out of the stadium. And the Spurs players just didn't know what to do. Tudor brought on Kolo Muani and Xavi Simons, and the Xavi situation is something I'll get into in a minute, but it just had no impact on the game whatsoever. It's just drifting. Spurs weren't really creating any chances. And so, yes, they had 2 positive performances, but expectations were really low going to Anfield last week. and they surprised everybody by getting that 90th minute equaliser. Yes, they played well against Atletico Madrid, but were Atletico ever in any serious danger of being knocked out of the competition? No. The expectation, the pressure around this Forest game was much different, and they couldn't handle it.
Interesting. Tim, you were watching this as well.
I mean, it was just remarkable seeing, you know, the sort of contrasting emotions. You could see it coming a mile off. You really could. And like Jay says, there was no pressure on the last two games. When that pressure's on, they just wilt. And the whole game was bigged up massively, you know, by the club as well. The club are putting out a clip from Christian Romero before kickoff, sort of bigging it up like it's a Champions League semi-final. And yeah, it's hard to, just when you think they can't get any worse. I mean, you know, I heard the Crystal Palace home game called one of their biggest league games in sort of a generation, and they lose that 3-1. This was then dubbed pretty clearly their biggest league game in a generation, and they've lost 3-0. I mean, it's just, they're at their lowest ebb for, well, certainly in my lifetime. I don't remember them ever.
Their lowest ebb so far, Tim.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But just watching them, I don't know, they're just so sort of one-dimensional. They put 30 crosses in the box in this match, and Forest just lapped it up. The back four was so compact. Milenkovic heading everything away for fun. The midfielders were just tracking back and sort of making a block of 6 in the Forest box. So all these crosses were just pointless. And I know they've got sort of 2 up front, Richarlison and Solanke, and that's the game plan they've picked. But again, you look at Igor Tudor's sort of odd selection. Van der Ven at left back, Porro at right wing. You know, if Bergval's fit to play 45, I don't know why he doesn't start. Xavi Simons, I don't know why he doesn't start. Or Doggy for I don't know. It's just strange.
The argument with Van der Ven, a few people had argued for him to start at left back, and I do think that was the right thing to do, because Danso is probably another player who does escape this game with some credit, because I thought he was magnificent in the first half in particular. So Van der Ven's been very erratic. A Doggy's fitness issues mean I don't know if he can be trusted to play 90 minutes and to start. So moving Van der Ven to left back sort of made sense, because when Spence plays there, because he's predominantly right-footed, the team just doesn't connect very well. But you hit the nail on the head. The Xavi thing is just bizarre at this point. Clearly, Tudor does not fancy him for whatever reason. Xavi's not lit up the Premier League the way people may have expected him to when he joined from RB Leipzig in the summer. But pretty much since mid-December onwards, he has played well. He has been a bright spark. It's looked like he's adapted to the physicality of the league more. He gets to, I know the second goal was a penalty against Atletico Madrid. By the way, he won that penalty with the 1-2 with Gray was exceptional. And obviously the first goal was incredible as well. He's just someone who can draw 2 or 3 defenders towards him, which creates space for other people. He can win free kicks. He's dynamic. He's just got something a little bit about him. He wants the ball when the pressure is on. And so for Tudor to consistently not pick him, and like you say, play Porro at right wing, then in the second half move Porro to right back, it's just so messy and clunky, and it just means the responsibilities players have are constantly changing in games. And at the moment, you're just not too sure where they're going to get a league win from.
So they've got 3 weeks until their next match.
Mm-hmm.
Jay, is the talk that the club might be considering Tudor's position again?
So the slight complicated factor about this, which I should mention, is that Tudor didn't do the post-match press conference because of a family bereavement.
Oh.
So it was his assistant coach, Bruno Salter. So we sort of need to see what the outcome of that is, because obviously that's a very serious situation, and we hope sort of Tudor's family is dealing with it in the best way possible. But it does feel like at some point when the situation settled down, people are sort of just going to revert back to the conversations they were having a week ago about whether Spurs should get Harry Redknapp straight from Cheltenham Festival and put him back in the Hotspur away.
Right, they're not seriously talking about that as an option.
I don't think we can rule anything out in the world of Spurs. Can I make one more point, by the way, before I forget? So Spurs in the summer, the 3 players they missed out on were Morgan Gibbs-White, Echegaray Eze, Antoine Semenyo. And I'm sort of laughing because this is just Spurs at the moment. It's just so ridiculous that I'm going to say this. Eze scored 5 goals against Spurs this season. Semenyo scored a 95th minute winner in his last game for Bournemouth and then scored in a draw with Man City in February. Morgan Gibbs-White scores today. It's just, you just couldn't make it up that these guys who Spurs were so desperate for in the summer are now just contributing to their downfall.
So the scouts are working. I mean, the scouts are doing their job.
Yeah, the scouts are doing their job.
Right.
The people above them are not doing their job so well.
Well, Who's going down, them or West Ham, Tim, or Forest?
Or Leeds.
Or Leeds.
And you're writing off Burnley and Wolves. You're writing off Burnley and Wolves, just for the record.
At this point.
Okay. Yes, Spurs. There's only one way it's going. That's the trajectory.
Really?
They were in the worst run for 91 years. They won this year.
Right. Spurs have picked up 1 point from their last 7 games.
Yeah, now they've got 7 left. So there's no... You have to call that they're getting relegated at this point. Something has to change.
It's every week something happens in the world of Spurs. Well, to be honest, every hour something happens in the world of Spurs. So we haven't even mentioned, first choice goalkeeper who didn't cover himself in glory today,
Right.
Vicario, is going to have a hernia operation in the international break.
Right. Remind me why they couldn't use the backup instead?
Well, because Antonin Kinski's confidence is shattered after what happened in Atletico. It just always feels like something mad is going on. And like Tim said, they've taken 1 point from their last 7 games. The games that they've got to play at Molineux against Wolves, at home against Leeds United seem absolutely massive. But you just don't know if they have any not credibility. You just don't trust them to get anything from those games. Because every time, as we already mentioned, Crystal Palace is billed as the biggest game in a generation. So is this game against Forest. They just don't deliver. They just can't seem to cope with it. And it's just been heading in this direction for a long, long time. I think before it almost felt like they were sleepwalking towards relegation, whereas now it just feels like they're just completely free-falling and heading in that direction.
West Ham are the team who are currently in the bottom 3 alongside Burnley and the Wolves. Luis, you saw them on Sunday afternoon away at Aston Villa, where Nuno Espirito Santo had to make last-minute revisions to his lineup after an injury in the warm-up. But we'll get into West Ham and their prospects in a second or two. First, a rare opportunity to say, well done, Villa. A great week for them as well between Europe and this.
Finally, the curse of me being on this show and talking about Villa has been broken because Villa finally win and we can talk about it. So yes, it was finally a return to everything that Villa fans have been familiar with under Unai Emery as they won 2-0 against West Ham. It should have been more, but regardless, I think the bigger point was the fact that after a very, very tormentous, dreary last few weeks, I mean, you can even go all the way back to the end of January, Aston Villa finally get a victory. I mean, there's a lot of factors towards it, or we can break it down, but overall, the most important factor is that Villa won at Villa Park, not conceded, a second consecutive win in all competitions, and most importantly, a 6-point buffer over Chelsea and a 5-point buffer over Liverpool before the international break. So it was a wonderful day for Villa, that's for sure.
Excellent. And you also had McGinn continuing his recovery. You had Tielemans coming on. So
yeah, that's the
those vital midfield components.
Yeah, it's a massive factor. I mean, look, we can go deep into why Villa have been suffering so much, but one of a major factor has been the simplistic one. When you don't have strong personnel, you'll have weak results, and that's what's happened. I mean, we've seen it across the board out of any team, not just Aston Villa, but Aston Villa missed, the 3 most important players in the midfield. Boubacar Kamara, who in my opinion is Aston Villa's most important player, full stop. He's out for the whole season, and then John McGinn has only returned recently. The captain and his perseverance, his aggression, everything that he represents has been missed so much. He obviously scored today as well. And then, the other component is Youri Tielemans finally, which is ahead of schedule because he was meant to return after the international break. Youri Tielemans returns. He comes on as a sub, and already you can see not just the confidence in Tielemans because he's back, but in the entire organization. Douglas Luiz is playing better. Amadou Onana was fantastic. Even, obviously Ollie Watkins got his goal. Morgan Rogers is feeling more fluid. So, when you strengthen that Villa side, it becomes so much better. Because remember, this is a team that's trying to get Champions League football that doesn't have a Champions League squad, not in the likes of Manchester City or Arsenal or Liverpool or even Chelsea to that regard. So every single body for Villa counts, and the fact that they're slowly returning is massive. But most importantly, getting those 3 points and getting that aforementioned buffer that I was talking about was really significant.
6 points ahead of Chelsea in the first of the likely non-Champions League positions. Also, the potential route to the Champions League of winning the Europa League, which Emery has some experience of doing. Villa, after defeating Lille 3-0 on aggregate in the last 16. Will be up against Bologna in the quarterfinals, which I think is probably a favourable draw. Ollie Watkins, Luis, there was much made of his goal and the fact that it somehow answered his critics or was a reply to not being called up by Thomas Tuchel for England. If you were England manager, would you take Ollie Watkins?
Not right now. I think Danny Welbeck deserves it more than Ollie Watkins at this point. But Ollie Watkins knows it. And I think the goal was in essence a reaction to not being picked. And he knows that he, especially, 30 years old, he's at a point where he needs to really, deliver and do more. I will say this about Ollie Watkins, which quite rightly and from a justified situation, Villa fans have been very frustrated with him. And I think that his issues this season have been multifunctional. It's not just Watkins. Of course, he is part of it because I actually think Ollie Watkins is a winger disguised as a striker. He is somebody that's much better when he comes off another number 9 and he can, either go from the left or the right, and with his instinctive runs, his aggression, he can score goals. But under Villa, he is the sole number 9. And Villa, under Unai Emery, are actually a team who prefer to play without the ball. We like to go on the counter a lot. We like to play in rhythm when we don't have the ball. And once the opponent loses it, we push with Morgan Rogers on one side, perhaps Emiliano Buendia next to him, Leon Bailey on the other side, Yuri when he's fit, of course, and so forth. And when things are not working out, when opponents are figuring out Aston Villa, they play the low to mid block, they just hold, and the struggles happen, which is what's happened in the last month and a half. Then your striker is going to suffer because he doesn't get the right productivity. So part of it has been Watkins. He's done some second guess thinking, because at the end of the day, the most important tool for a striker is his confidence, and he doesn't have it. There's been moments where he's wanted to take it from his right foot to his left foot instead of just quickly finishing, which never ever happens under Watkins. But now he slowly, especially today, he was, playing more of a poacher role, feeding off Morgan Rogers, and that helped him. So hopefully, after the international break, the fact that he wasn't selected by Tuchel is probably going to be a good thing for him, because he's going to have this time to really just think about what he wants moving forward in the last few weeks of the season, and hopefully fight for his place for the World Cup. Because let's not forget, this is Aston Villa's all-time Premier League scorer. He is a tremendous serviceman and somebody that works so hard, especially off the ball. He is so useful when he's on form, not just for Villa but for England. But it was great to see him score today for sure.
Okay, his 10th goal of the season, so it's not like he hasn't scored any others. Very good. Well, congratulations to Villa, Luis. Still to come, we've yet to hear about Everton's phenomenal 3-0 thumping of Chelsea as their week goes from bad to worse, and also events in the Tyne Weir derby and so much more. Off to St James's Park probably next. Oh, Tim, you saw this. Tim Spiers, the early game on Sunday. Oh, a lot of build-up to this as well. Comparable, perhaps, to scenes outside the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium.
Yeah, but a bit more angsty.
Edge. A lot of edge.
Yeah, police escort for all the Sunderland fans to walk into the ground, and lots of stuff being thrown at them, and to the team as well. The team was sort of pelted with bottles and stuff.
In the coach?
Sorry, in the team coach, on the way in. I mean, if you've been to St James's, there's not much room to sort of separate fans outside that ground, and it was, it's pretty tasty.
Well, in which case, given the pressure that the build-up might have left them feeling, given the fact that they were without their first-choice keeper, they had, I think, 3 defenders out, 3 first-choice defenders, was it out? They've been in a really bad run of form, Sunderland, and then they gifted Newcastle the opening goal. It was a pretty phenomenal performance from the Black Cats to come back. Yeah,
unbelievable. I mean, derbies like this, it's a proper derby between two not sort of great teams. So you're not expecting a great match. And both teams are probably at their lowest ebbs of the whole season, I would say. Newcastle, obviously, they've just been thumped, conceded 7 in the week. Sunderland, 4 points from the last 6 matches, got dumped out of the FA Cup. So you're coming into this game in the absence of one team being sort of vastly superior over the other, and able to play them off the pitch. You're sort of relying on those sort of classic derby sort of attributes of like commitment and desire and winning duels and running more than the other. And that's where Newcastle just came up woefully short. I mean, this was a deserved win for Sunderland. Newcastle just went really flat. They had no energy whatsoever, no ideas, barely any shots in the second half, and they're booed off at full time. And Eddie Howe's getting an enormous amount of grief on social media, a lot. And it's the complete opposite for Sunderland. Just a remarkable day, and caps already a fantastic season. I mean, they're safe. They've been safe for weeks, and they've beaten Newcastle twice. After what they've been through the last 10 years, I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. And the scenes reflected that at full time, obviously with a late winner as well. It was just, it was glorious.
Speaking about the fans on social media, here's a comment from an A. Shearer who says, a pathetic, weak, lazy, limp second half from Newcastle again. Of course, there was the second half away in Barcelona, and you can find probably extenuating, you can find some mitigation for that. But this second half, again, a bit like the Spurs description, this was a game, particularly after Barcelona, that they absolutely had to perform in. Did you see that from them? Why and why was it absent?
I mean, I guess in his defence, it's their 51st game of the season, I think.
Right.
And he's had issues.
So the fatigue is a subject that comes up, and the Athletic has mentioned it a lot. And the reaction below the line is always, don't mention the fatigue. What's Eddie Howe not doing? Why is he never inspiring his team into any kind of second half performance?
Yeah, and the team selection was quite odd. Voltemada back in midfield again. Johan Wissa comes on in the 89th minute, in a derby game, a must-win game, the most important game left for the rest of the season in the league for Newcastle. Other than sort of, Dan Burn and Gordon and Joe Linton, nobody was playing this match like it was a derby match or like it meant anything really. And he's had problems managing his squad. We've seen this before with Newcastle when they've been playing in multiple competitions. And I do have some sympathy for him there because, they brought in a few players last summer, but before that they went 2 years without signing anyone. They're not, you can't just paper over that with a few signings, some of whom have not proved to be good enough. Right. And then expect to compete in 4 competitions as they have been until recently. They went to the semis of the Carabao, 5th round of the FA Cup, and they've only just finished the European season. So to come out of that sort of 51 games in with nowhere near a good enough squad and having to play Anthony Gordon up front, in Howe's mind, shows you that it's a bit of a mess there, really.
Okay, fair enough. Well,
I was just going to say quickly, bringing on Visser in the 89th minute is, to me, bizarre. I've not watched Newcastle a lot this season, and I know that Visser had that knee injury, which sort of completely ruined his start to the club. But this is someone who got, I think it was 19 goals in the Premier League last season. I used to watch him week in, week out at Brentford. Very intelligent player, fantastic finisher. If it's a tight 1-1 game, he is someone who is very good at knowing where the ball is going to land in the box. Just use him. And the more you don't use him, he's never going to become the player that you want him to be if you're just sort of leaving him on the touchlines. But I remember speaking to people before that say Eddie Howe does sometimes sort of struggle to integrate new signings. He has this sort of trusted lieutenants. And I do wonder if Visser's sort of fallen into that unlucky, type where he's just not trusted, not seen as very valued. But there's a very, very good player in there.
Okay. Luis?
I just wanted to feed off that. I think part of the reason as well is when I look at this lineup today against Sunderland, for example, and the 51 matches, of course, are a factor, but I think Eddie Howe doesn't do himself any favors when he puts on a midfield that there's not one midfielder, and I get it, Tonali wasn't there, but there's not one midfielder in there that's going to hold for you, that's going to give you some kind of stability. Villa fans know all about Jacob Ramsey, tremendous talent, but he's not that. Joelinton is a forward turn into a midfielder, tremendous serviceman, but he's also, he's more of a physical presence as opposed to an architect play-by-play. And then Voltemada is a striker. So, to even sort of echo, what Jay was saying, I think, when you have the likes of Wissa or you have, Barnes up there and Elanga, they're going to need much better service and consistent play-by-play service that also calms the waters in times of a game where things are not going your way. Because sometimes, especially at St. James's Park, I feel that Newcastle United are just one gear. We need to just go all out and try and penetrate, go wide, look for the target man, go wide, look for the target man, go wide, look for the target man. If we lose it, let's all just just track back. And sometimes it's not enough, especially if you want to be a Champions League worthy team. I think there's a lot, for sure the fatigue is a factor, but I think some fans are right in questioning, look, Eddie Howe needs to really rethink sometimes what kind of Newcastle he wants them to be, especially in a very big game like the one today against Sunderland.
Well, for Newcastle, the season pretty much over now. As you say, Sunderland have done kind of everything they could have wanted at the start of this campaign. Newcastle, not so much. They're in 12th place currently in the Premier League. Look like they're out of the running for European spots and out of all three knockout competitions as well. Possibly the only consolation is that there are other clubs doing really badly as well. One of them being Chelsea. Let's talk about Chelsea, Jay. Did you catch their performance away at Everton?
I caught a tiny bit of this performance. It was on in the background.
Who saw? There's nothing to smile about. Go on then, Luis. Tell us about Everton's best day at their spanking new stadium so far.
Yeah, I think that's where we need to begin. Let's talk about Chelsea, but let's begin with Everton. I thought it was their best performance, definitely at Hill Dickinson. I mean, they were magnificent. They were aggressive, and very simplistically, they wanted it more. They pressed every time they didn't have the ball. They didn't allow Chelsea to have any kind of rhythm. And even when Chelsea had a sniff and going into their own box, like Everton were there, going one after another. It's no surprise to me why the likes of James Garner is getting so much attention. He was wonderful today as well. Great to get his England call up as well. Beto, of course, with his 2 goals. But Everton were so good, and now look at Everton. They're 3 points off 5th. And I think it's David Moyes just speaking to this team and saying, "Make yourself counted for," which is the complete opposite of Chelsea. And this has not been a surprise to me. I mean, obviously they're going through a rut right now. I think it just speaks to the fact that, well, number one, we were talking about Kepa Arrizabalaga. I've always thought Robert Sanchez was a good goalkeeper, above average goalkeeper, not a great one. And we even saw issues with, distribution when it came to playing under Enzo Maresca. But it's not just him. I think there's something to be spoken for about accountability. And when you're a young team, sometimes that doesn't exist. And it definitely showed today. And if we have time, I'll tell you a little bit about what's going on with Enzo Fernandez as well, because his future looks very fragile at Chelsea. Obviously, they're going to try and make some money out of him, but he is not happy.
Well, lots of people not happy with him as well. So that's a potential topic. But before we get anywhere near him, saluting James Garner, that through ball, it was exactly the kind of ball that Chelsea got done by against Newcastle last week as well, Tim.
Yeah, that was one of the worst defended goals I've seen in many years last week from Chelsea against Newcastle. Well, no, this one wasn't quite as
as bad.
This one required more accuracy on Everton's part and sort of speed and precision from Garner,
and a great finish as well.
Yeah, and a superb finish from Beto. Just sort of dinks it beautifully over Sanchez. But yeah, Garner was great. He was sort of everywhere. He was tenacious, and this moment that kind of there were so many moments that sort of typified Everton's. It was very sort of old school v new school, I thought, and it's so easy to say that because it's David Moyes against Liam Rosenior, but that's how it played out. The values that Everton embody, they were surrounding Chelsea, the 2 or 3 of them.
Ooh, how ironic.
Well, see, they did something new with the huddle this time, which didn't work either. So when the huddle, which was just a little bit off centre circle this time, when it finished, they all did a sort of an American-style arms in at the end, just for a bit of extra motivation.
Right.
But that didn't work.
And did you see that team spirit? No,
not at all. But they look like a team of individuals to me, particularly going forward. You don't see them attacking in groups. Other than João Pedro, they've all disappointed all season.
I was watching this game with a couple of mates, and I do really like Caicedo, but he just has no discipline, does he, right? They just constantly charges into tackles, etc. My friend sort of said, but who is he supposed to lean on? Because he's still a very young player, right? And there's just not enough experience in that team. That's why a couple of years ago, when Thiago Silva was still there, he had such an influence because he could sort of just offer that guidance and leadership towards the younger members of the squad. But that's what you need someone now to sort of grab hold of players like Caicedo and say, you don't need to go charging into tackles all over the pitch and conceding free kicks and giving teams like Everton the chance to just launch set pieces into the box, etc. So just so many things.
And they're constantly throwing themselves to the floor. I mean, they do, every Premier League team does it, but they did it so much. They're just constantly looking for fouls from the slightest of touch. It's like, just get on with the game. You're 3-0 down.
Everton's third goal was a beauty, Tim, on a positive note. The Iliman Ndiaye one.
Oh, yeah, gorgeous shot into top corner. I think it was a Beto flick on from a goal kick. Just, very simple, something that Chelsea wouldn't even think to attempt, I'm afraid. The amount of times they tried to play out from the back, in the first 15 minutes, I counted 5 or 6 dreadful errors. They were all doing it, just giving the ball away. Everton just the complete opposite of Ndiaye. It was a beautiful finish. You also have to mention Pickford's save from Fernandez's half volley, did another wonder save. It's a corner that sort of he pushes out a corner at the near post. He's sort of level with the post, and then the ball is bouncing to Enzo Fernandez, who hits it on the half volley, and Pickford saves it in the middle of the goal. So he's got across half the goal in one movement, and somehow finds the strength to push it out with his right hand as well. It's an incredible save, and then a nice little celebration afterwards as well.
Superb. Chelsea then, this their 4th defeat in a row. In many ways, it feels like each performance has been worse than the last. They've conceded 14 goals in their last 5 matches, which is almost 3 goals a game. Again, there's the suggestion that not all the players are particularly committed to this project going forward. Lewis, you were just talking about one player's imminent decision about his future. Fernandes actually talking, I think, after the Champions League game against Paris Saint-Germain about what might happen with him and Real Madrid. Was that what you were referring to?
Yes, but there's also other reports coming specifically from Argentina. And there was another interview he did midweek as well, where he was talking to, perhaps we're talking about the same one, but Juan Pablo Sorin, the former player, works for TUDN, the Mexican Spanish-speaking sports network here in the U.S. And, when Argentinians come together and they interview each other, sometimes they say more than they don't want to. And Sorin's question was essentially, what happened with Maresca? Like, everybody's, why? What, were you happy about it? Whatever. And obviously Fernandes was trying to be very diplomatic about it, but he was very frustrated, clearly. And he said, we don't know what's going on. I have no idea why it happened. Obviously, we had an identity under Maresca. We had a way of playing. Everybody understood things in training. And now we don't know. I don't think he was throwing Liam Rosenior under the bus. It was more to do about the decision for Enzo Maresca to leave. And then the conversation went obviously on about, his future and everything. But the latest report specifically from Argentina is that he really is weighing his options, but that's not really a shocking surprise. Enzo Fernandez also is very good friends with Julian Alvarez, who is loving life in Spain with Atletico de Madrid. And, there's also perhaps a talk that Dibu Martinez might leave and Cuti Romero. We might see an Argentinian exodus in the summer. Jimbo and Enzo Fernandez might be one of the leading players doing it. But yes, not everything is rosy with Enzo. Obviously, his price tag is massive with Chelsea. And to your point, it's not like he's exactly delivering consistent performances, but he's definitely one to watch out for in the summer. And Real Madrid, as always, are going to be a major contender, especially when, if they lose La Liga, they don't win the Champions League. Florentino Perez is going to make a statement in the summer, and he might be one of them.
All right, one to keep an eye on. Boos, by the way, at this game, not just, I think, from some Chelsea fans at the end, but also from the home supporters who, when the Premier League anthem was played at the start, had a go irate about the fact that they got hit by 2 separate points penalties for breaches of spending profit and sustainability regulations previously. And Chelsea, of course, this week had their penalty announced, and it was 10 million and some suspended sentences and no point deduction whatsoever. Can't help but notice that all the teams who were in the Champions League really struggled, particularly in the second halves of their games this weekend, with the exception of Manchester City, who very much were and didn't. But Liverpool were another example. Away at Brighton, 2-1 they were beaten. Anyone able to tell me about what happened in this game? Luis.
Watched it. This was... Liverpool are just a team this season, again, not a shocking statement, that have no fight and no real sense of aggression, especially away from home. And, Brighton, I think, were very good, very determined, very happy for Danny Welbeck. As we talked earlier, I think he's done wonderfully this season, and he would be a great contender to hopefully, if he can make it to the World Cup. He took his goals well. But Liverpool, I think what's happened with them this season is, obviously, aside from the overhaul and the transitions and the exits, is that they are so predictable in how they play that whenever they're faced with any kind of animosity or turmoil, especially away from Anfield, they don't have any answers because there's no direct aggression coming from them. One perfect example is that I don't think they did nearly enough to try and hold on to somebody like Lucho Diaz, who's now creating record numbers with Bayern Munich. My point being that they don't have enough of those players. So against Brighton, the goals were very weak. I thought Konate and Virgil van Dijk were not as good as they usually are. Konate obviously has struggled this season, but Virgil van Dijk, the perennial leader for Liverpool, was really at fault for a lot of it. And obviously the Ekitike injury didn't help things, but they were just not clicking in any way possible. And when they didn't have the ball, they didn't have an answer for Brighton, and they were so narrow that there was just no exit. That was just too easy for Brighton. Once again, it just goes to show that it's alarming to me to see this kind of performance from the defending champions, even this late in the season. And yes, I think the Champions League might play a factor, but I think we've seen this time and time again. They are just a completely docile Liverpool, definitely towards these last few weeks.
Yeah, after the midweek performance against Galatasaray, it was back down to earth with a bump against the Seagulls, who've now won 4 of their last 5 and tend to produce quite a lot of chances, don't always finish them. On this occasion, they did. Danny Welbeck, should he be on the plane? Tim?
I think we probably make too much of these things.
Do you think?
Well, Harry Kane will play 90 minutes of every match if he's fit and fine.
Right, it's a big tournament. I mean, it's a long tournament.
Yeah, but it probably won't matter too much.
Right.
But I do think, in a 26-man squad, he's probably deserved it. But then when Calvert-Lewin was scoring 7 and 6 at Christmas, you'd say that he would have to be in there. Solanke, I don't know, was he 65 million striker for a reason? Yep. There's plenty about him. So it's not sort of cut and dried. But yeah, he'd be in my 26.
The argument is, do you benefit more from having someone who offers you like a completely different profile? So to use the last Euros, you take Tony and you know that he is going to come on and score you a couple of crucial penalties, which is exactly what he did in the victory over Switzerland in the quarterfinals. So yes, Welbeck is a good guy, and he's probably very good for camp camaraderie, etc. Would you be better off having someone that offers you something completely different? So to use Solanke as an example,
vibes.
Solanke is doing his best in a very, very bad Spurs team, but he's still contributing, he's still getting a few goals, etc. And he is also someone who can drop deep, running behind defences. His all-round game is probably more complete than Welbeck's.
Right.
So I'm not saying you should pick Solanke over Welbeck. I'm just playing devil's advocate and saying you have to sort of weigh it up as, yes, Welbeck, if you're giving him service, is going to, be around the box and attacking and scoring goals, but actually, would you benefit from having someone who's a different type to Kane?
I hear you. He is the highest scoring Englishman in the Premier League with 12 goals. He also produced a quite astonishing hurdle. Did you see this when he hurdled Lewis Dunk in his goal celebration? Lewis Dunk, who's 6'4".
I think so.
He went clear over the top of him.
What can't Danny Welbeck do?
Make the plane to the World Cup, maybe. I don't know. Dunk, by the way, his significant contribution to this game, or a significant contribution to this game, was the Liverpool goal, was setting up Milos Kerkez for the Liverpool goal. But it feels churlish to blame him to it. It was a brilliant piece of, it was an inspirational bit of improvisation from Kerkez, no?
Yeah, lots of Brighton fans saying, well done, because he does that a lot.
Oh, does he?
Yeah.
So he'd studied tape, basically.
According to people on social media, Lewis Dunk does head the ball backwards towards his keeper blind quite a lot. It certainly looked that way from the way that, because Kerkez isn't in that position very often, is he? So
right.
It must have been pre-planned. It's brilliant. Genius.
Liverpool, as we say, coming down to earth with a bump. They've had 4 wins in their last 13 league matches. Quite extraordinary. There you go. They do slip back a little bit with regard to Man United in third spot. United, who themselves dropped points, but did manage a draw on Friday night away to Bournemouth, a game that took a while to get going. Who gave their Friday night to this one, Luis?
I think I remember it, but yes, it's basically like you said, that it was the final quarter of the match where everything really came alive. But yeah, it was an interesting game.
Well, we have Bournemouth coming from behind because Man United twice took the lead. In fact, across the two ties, Bournemouth have come from behind 5 times against United this season. However, United fans, and indeed here's one writing in at Podrick, says, when we get on to United v Bournemouth, would love to hear your thoughts on this weird media narrative that United still get decisions. Where is it coming from? This, I think it was 1-0 at the time when Truffert gets his hands on Ahmad, and it did look like a penalty. The referee didn't blow for it immediately. Bournemouth went up the other end, and of course, they scored. At which point, would I be wrong in thinking that the pressure on VAR became so much that what might have been a call became a much bigger call, i.e. they'd have to reverse a goal and they give a penalty? We've seen it happen, but it does make the whole thing a little bit more high pressure. What do you think, Jay?
Well, I didn't see it properly at the time. So I feel like I'm probably not the best person to answer it. Sorry.
Luis.
Yeah, no, I mean, at first, when Amad Diallo went down, I thought it was a little weak. But then, to your point, it didn't help when Bournemouth scored straight after that, adding even more pressure for what happened in the game. It's one of those tricky things because, to me, it's also about how strong is the player that you're sort of pushing off to get the ball. And Amad Diallo, with all due respect, is not the strongest. So it didn't look like a penalty to me. And then, if it forces VAR to ask the ref to look at it, I think at second hand it would have probably been given. So that's the issue. Like you said, it adds an extra added dose of pressure to VAR to assist at least and give a decision to make it happen. I personally thought that the ref made the right call by not giving it.
Okay. Well, that's all right then. There we go. Is there a media narrative that United get decisions? Tim, you're in the media.
Sure.
Yeah.
His
but that's legacy, isn't it?
Yeah, historically.
Yeah.
I feel that's less relevant in the VAR age, probably.
Very good. Very good. Bournemouth. We salute the fact that they have had 15 draws in total. The last 5 games have all been drawn. And that they are the second team in Premier League history to have an 11-match unbeaten run in the same campaign that they previously had an 11-match winless run. That is streaky, isn't it? Do you know who the previous team were to do that?
Only because I just looked.
Did you just look? It's Liverpool, 2002, 2003. Yeah. Anyway, there you go. It was a very exciting game on a Friday night. Also quite exciting, and on a Saturday afternoon, was Fulham Burnley, which the only one of us who could actually watch because it wasn't on TV. It was the only game this weekend that wasn't on TV. But luckily we have a correspondent who's there in the States where you can watch every game. So, Luis, did you tune in for Fulham Burnley? You didn't see it?
Nope, I didn't, but I did watch. I was happy for Raul Jimenez, obviously, the tragedy. But yeah, I did watch a little bit of it.
Okay.
But I didn't watch the game, yeah.
Jimenez got the 3rd goal for Fulham, who came from behind after Jan Fleming opened the scoring for the Clarets. Whose manager, Scott Parker, was looking very spiffy on that. He's always done up, but he's switched his usual attire for
what was he wearing?
He was wearing
I need to look it up now.
He might have been on his way to a function.
He always looks like he's on his way to
a different function.
A different function.
Anyway, there we go. We had Josh King with his first goal in the Premier League, equalising after only about 5 minutes after Burnley had taken the lead. Harry Wilson, everyone's favourite player, Harry Wilson, got his 10th goal of the season, and then, as mentioned, Jimenez converting the penalty late on.
He looks like he's, dropped in from a wedding. Like he's done a best man speech, and he's maybe because obviously Parker used to play for and manage Fulham.
Right.
Maybe he felt like he needed to dress up, impress, make a big point.
Possibly so. Possibly so. He wore the face of a man who's seen his former beau marry another guy, I would say, as this game, as so many have this season, slipped away from him. A match that he wasn't able to enjoy in every sense. Probably a description you could use for Leeds Brentford as well, which happened at 8 o'clock on Saturday night, which doesn't seem particularly fair to anybody, really. Leeds have been a win away from safety for a while, but they're still not there, are they, Tim? You mentioned this before. How many points are they off the bottom three?
So 4. But
4
yeah,
points.
they've just been struggling on for some time, like you say, like fairly hard to beat, but not good enough to get that. Not good enough to get that win. Not attacking enough for the Leeds fans, that's for sure.
Right. Any thoughts on Leeds Brentford, Luis?
Not really. I think it's
Okay.
what Tim said. I think they're just lucky enough that there's probably going to be 3 worse teams than them going down.
All right. 3 worse teams than them going down. Wolves, Burnley. And then, well, we'll see. We'll see. We're going to be taking... Oh, sorry,
I was
James.
going to say, I think I mentioned this when I was on the pod earlier this week, but it's just a continuation of sort of Brentford really slowing down because they've obviously dropped points against Leeds and Wolves in their last 2 games, drew at Bournemouth, had that mad win over Burnley, lost to Brighton. So, yes, they're in 7th, which is remarkable for them, but actually they've lost a bit of momentum. And if anything, if they'd sort of butt their ideas up a little bit over the last few games, could be even higher, which is mad to say.
All right.
But they need to make sure they don't sort of let this opportunity to get European football slip out of their grasp.
Okay, they presumably have a bit of a break before their next game.
Yes.
What with the internationals and FA Cup and that?
Yeah, I now need to check who their next game is against.
All right. But
Everton at home.
ooh, okay. Everton, who are themselves.
So they're level on points.
Ooh, all right. For any of that, we've got internationals, which is going to be pretty dramatic as well because it's the World Cup playoffs all over the world. Aspiring nations are going to be coming up against each other with that dream of make it to the World Cup when and if it happens in the States or anywhere and competing in the greatest show sport can offer. We're going to be talking about that in the week coming up because they start on Thursday night, the World Cup playoffs. It's very, very exciting. Luis, that's where we come to the end of today's Rainbow, though. So thank you so much for being with us there on your Sunday afternoon in New York. What are you going to go out and do now? Something really New York, I hope.
Well, it's funny. There's a pizza place really close to my apartment called Keste, and it's where the local New York Roma fans get together every Sunday or every weekend. So I'll be going there to get a slice with my wife, and then we'll come home. But it's some of the best pizza you'll have around my area for sure.
That name again, Luis?
Keste.
Keste. How do you spell that?
Keste. Keste.
Keste. Okay, interesting. Interesting. All right, thanks for the tip, Luis, and thank you so much for being with us today. Jay, many, many thanks to you.
Thank you very much.
Look forward to catching up with you again soon on the Totally Football Show. Tim, thank you for coming in. Many thanks as well to Ghostly Woman. There she is. And also to long-suffering video producer Jake, who's a Spurs fan, but is seeing the funny side. Excellent. Thank you for being with us, YouTube viewer and podcast listener. We're back with a Euro show on Tuesday morning, so perhaps you might catch up with us then. For now, from all of us here, it's goodbye.